37 as winds gust to 35 miles an hour. There's a chance of rain and snow Thursday morning. Mostly cloudy skies will gradually become sunny with a high 42. We'll have wind gusts of 40 miles an hour. Friday should be a sunny day. Expect a high of 48. I'm Rod Tanner, and for more information, check out our website, the all-new www.my1071thepoint.com.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to Michael Evans on America's Voice Now, where we're telling the truth every single day. Today's bullet points are in reference to a recent or last night's O'Reilly factor, where Mr. O'Reilly, again, in a misguided fashion, suggested or recommended that in light of the shootings in Connecticut, that any individual who may own a AR or quote-unquote, in his opinion, heavy weapon should be required to register that heavy weapon with the FBI. On one hand, he claims that taking firearms away is a constitutional violation. And on the other hand, he turns around and says that registration is an acceptable solution. Mr. O'Reilly, I'm here to tell you that you and your friend, Mr. Krauthammer, are absolutely uninformed about the situation. And first and foremost, and secondarily, that you have absolutely lost touch with the constitutionality and the base foundation of our nation. In a later interview with two Fox News contributors, in which they talked about the parent or the mother who had obtained an AR-15 legally in Connecticut, they harangued the state of Connecticut for what they called lax gun laws. And the gun laws in Connecticut required a 2-week waiting period from the date that you purchase an AR-15 until the date that you can pick it up. Now, O'Reilly then went on to say, and I found it amazing that he would actually indicate that he has a security at his home, and that if someone were to enter his home, he would kill them. And he made no bones about it. He said it repeatedly. He said, if they come into my home, I'll kill them. I'm not going to wound them. I'm going to kill them. Mr. O'Reilly, in the event, in the unlikely and hopefully for your family, in the unfortunate event that someone were to do that, your trial would be an absolute loss right here, right now. They would utilize those words against you to convict you of murder or attempted murder, because what you didn't do is try to disarm the situation or end the behavior. What you did try to do, according to your own words, was to murder the individual or kill him. And you said, well, I have every right to do that. Well, that may be so, but reality states this, and it's clear that you don't have a very good legal background. Whenever you are involved in a shooting, if you've had any training whatsoever, and this tells me that you haven't, you never shoot to kill. You shoot to cease and end the situation. That's what you accomplish. You cease the behavior of the assailant. If you shoot to kill, you then have an obligation to pay his family, regardless of who and where and what the circumstances are, because you may have had an opportunity to defuse the situation, but without actually having to kill the individual. However, you, like a fool, have admitted on open air, on a recorded document, that your intention is to kill. Mr. O'Reilly, you are an absolute buffoon. I have seen you make statements that are completely unconscionable and completely outside the scope of reality. AR-15s and AK-47s are not heavy weapons. If you had any kind of a military understanding or background, you would know that they are not classified as heavy weapons, except in your mainstream media diatribe. I, for one, am getting a little tired of your approach to the issue, where it's fine for you to have, with multi-million-dollar income, all the security that you like, while the rest of us have to let 'em eat cake, so to speak, and fend for ourselves. While you may have an unlimited income and the wherewithal and ability to obtain and purchase and support the best security teams and the best security surveillance measures on your own individual home, and I'm sure you have paid security while you were at work at the station, unfortunately, the rest of us don't have that luxury. Our children don't go to high-end private schools. We don't have armed security at our homes, and we are entitled to defend ourselves. I strongly recommend, Mr. O'Reilly, that you come out and spend some time out here with the folks that you so claim to represent and watch out for before you shoot your mouth off in absolute and utter ignorance. And that's the end of today's bullet points. Give us a call on the hair hotline. This is the hotline supported by Wits End, local hair cutter here in West Plains. This is the old-fashioned barbershop right here on the square. Best darn haircuts you can find around, and they do a hot lather shave that will make you feel like you've just stepped back into 70 years behind in the calendar. Jason's a friend of ours, and I encourage you to go over there. He's open 5 days a week, Tuesday through Saturday, and opens late on Thursday and Friday. You can call our hotline at 257-1111. That's 257-1111. Also, our toll-free number at 1-866-554-6636. Before we get too far into the show, and I see the phone lines are already lighting up, I want to make sure that you know that we are going to have Dr. Bart Rossi on this morning. Dr. Bart Rossi will be talking with us. He's a clinical psychologist and has insights into how and why random shooters operate and what's going on psychologically behind their tickers, if you will, behind their forehead. So we're going to invite him on as well. Just bear with me 1 second. We'll bring. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
Basically, I called. My hat's off to Michigan. Michigan just passed the law to arm the teachers. Okay, and that's the only way you're going to get it stopped.
Right.
You cannot have a defenseless bunch of people. They're like lambs to slaughter. And all I've been hearing, on the radio and the TV is, gun control, gun control, gun control. Take the guns away, register the guns, get rid of assault weapons and stuff like that. My hat's off to that governor of Michigan because he was smart enough to see the problem and fix it. And I got a slogan: save the kids, arm the teacher.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. That's all I have to say this morning, Mike.
Appreciate your call. Thanks very much.
Bye.
So, folks, I discussed this yesterday in reference to the fact that there's a simple solution for our local school systems, and that is basically to provide a group of teachers who are voluntary to go out there and take the same post-testing that law enforcement takes and have an opportunity to act as a local law enforcement officer within the school grounds. They would be able to provide security within the school grounds, as an example, and certainly that's a solution that we should seriously be looking at before we strip America of her rights. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I called yesterday, and you had a talker on, so I wasn't able to get on.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, I was talking about yesterday. In order to fix the problem with crazy people shooting kids, there's a whole lot of veterans that come back from the war that don't have jobs.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the government can't just put one of them or two in each school and give them a job. I mean,
Well, and your point is well taken. I mean, I get the fact that budgetary issues may jump in there and insert themselves into that issue. So, I mean, I buy that. My point in talking about being able to arm the teachers is that you're now having an individual who does double duty. In other words, it's not a whole nother job, right? I mean, and I recognize that we may need to pay them some additional stipend for, one, attending the school, two, we'd have to obtain and purchase equipment and so forth for them to be able to perform this duty. But I think it would be less, and please don't misunderstand me. I'm not knocking the idea of veterans getting jobs who need them. But I think budgetary constraints in a community like this, as an example, or many small communities around the nation, would be difficult to find the salary for 2 or 3 individuals. And, you know, in many cities and towns, you have schools where you have multiple buildings. Hiring an individual to sit and spend the entire day in multiple buildings or 3, 4, 5 campus-type environment buildings would be very, very expensive and very difficult. You also have elementary, middle, and high schools. So, and in the high schools, as an example, you may have 4 or 5 buildings on the campus. So you can immediately begin to see the problem. Now you're not talking about 1 or 2 guys. You're talking about 1 guy for the elementary, 1 guy for the middle, and at least 3 or 4 for the high school. And then you got to replicate that around every rural school around. I mean, you're talking about, hiring an extra 20 or 30 people perhaps. So what I would suggest is that a far less expensive method to do that, which would, be just as effective, would be to take the situation where you're training your teachers who are already there at school, already being paid, and offer them an additional stipend, which would be far less than a new full-time employee, if you follow my thought. But listen.
In Texas, they're doing that.
I'm sure they are, and you know what?
The teachers are carrying.
Every state ought to be looking at it. They just had to pass a change in the state law the other day about, I think it was Massachusetts or someplace, to allow teachers to actually carry a weapon in the school because it was prohibited by state legislature. So, right. Hey, listen, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. It's a great idea, by the way. I'm all for it. I just think that, it's got to be affordable, right? And that may be part of in fact, it may be that would be the leader of the teachers. In other words, your military guy who's already got training and experience in a combat role might be the perfect guy to lead that teacher cadre team. So now you're hiring one guy who's got 6 or 8 team and staff members beneath him who he's the leader of the crew, if you will, right?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Great thoughts, man. Hey, thanks so much for the call.
All right, have a good day.
All right, you too. Hey, folks, I want to remind you that the battery station down on Washington Avenue, today we're getting up to the last of their opportunity for their 10th annual troop drive. Speaking about troops, these guys are collecting baby wipes, coffee, tuna, salmon, and foil packets, dry soup mixes, Christmas cards, that kind of thing. They get these out to the troops. I want to make sure that you're participating, if at all possible, with that before these packages go out. You can find those guys at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains. We'll be back in just a moment.
I'm a 3rd grade teacher.
I'm a school bus driver.
I am a parent.
I am a teacher's aide. And I agree to be identified as a caring adult who pledges to help bullied students.
I will listen carefully to all students who seek my help
and act on their behalf
to put an immediate stop to bullying.
I will work with other caring adults to create a safe learning environment for all the students in my school.
In my school.
In my school.
In my school.
I'm Dennis Van Rokel, president of the National Education Association. Help us create safe, bully-free learning environments for all students. One caring adult can make all the difference. Be that adult and take the pledge at NEA.org/bullyfree. Adults have the power to stop bullying in our schools.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
Bully-free. It starts with me.
Visit NEA.org/bullyfree. A message from the National Education Association.
America's Voice Now with Michael Evans.
All right. I want to remind you folks that we are approaching the last week or so of making sure that we've got things going out for this 10th annual troop drive. The battery station down on Washington Avenue, they have been doing this for 10 years at their own cost and expense. And I would strongly encourage you to participate in this effort. Basically what they do is every Christmas they send flashlights, batteries, food products, and things like that over to our troops over in Afghanistan. And they work with a group, the 91st Airborne Cavalry, and basically they send them baby wipes and cookies and, all kinds of things, as well as, some really not just food products, but, soap. Baby wipes, because these guys don't get to take a shower but maybe once every 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. And that's for real, guys. My son was just, was over there and is on his way, is back now. I mean, you're talking about what's it like to not take a shower for 6 weeks? Baby wipes would be like gold bars over there, okay? So unscented, by the way. All this stuff has to be unscented. But also coffee packets, tuna, salmon, and foil packets, dried soup mixes, Christmas cards, playing cards, all of that kind of thing. Remember that these guys are over there, and whether you agree or disagree with why they're there, they've put their lives on the line as their country demanded, and they've done their duty, and they're doing it every day. So I strongly encourage you to participate and be a part of that effort. You can drop things off to them at 303 Washington Avenue, and their phone number, if you need to call, is 257-7799. That's 417-257-7799. Now, I also want to remind you that the battery station is a brand new advertiser for us as well, and those folks are... they just got a new supply of freeze-dried Mountain House products in. So these are those big number 10 cans. Make sure that you get down there and you talk to them, because I have to tell you, you can buy, and it's great stuff like granola with strawberries and milk already made. All you got to basically do is add water to this stuff, and instantly you've got a meal. I've never seen prices like this on this stuff. I see it in catalogs for $35, $36 a can. They're in the $21, $22, $23, $24 a can range. So make sure that you get down there. It's a very limited amount of it. Also, he's got great stocking stuffers with these otter boxes that are like waterproof otter boxes, and he's $10 below what you'd pay on eBay. So make sure you get down there, 303 Washington Avenue. Ask for Kevin and tell him Mike sent you from America's Voice Now. All right? Also, just want to mention very quickly, our supporters, Bill Stone from Stone Construction at 2930116. Bill is 40 years in the remodeling and construction business, works on new and custom construction, also custom remodeling. If you got a family member you need to have move into the home, or you just need to expand for your family, perfect guy to call. If you're doing light commercial, give Bill a call at 2930116. He's the right guy for the job. Chantilly's Artisan Bakery is our dear friend Mary over there. You can get a hold of her at 255-2253. She will be open late on Christmas Eve. So if you haven't placed your last-minute orders, or if you haven't set up something for your family and your Christmas party or your family reunion, make sure that you get a hold of Mary and get that ordered right away, and you can pick it up Christmas Eve. So it'll be hot and fresh and ready for the family. Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance can be found at ozarkmtnselfreliance.com. You can get a hold of Brian also at 870-492-4030. They carry all kinds of self-reliant products and services and gear. Make sure that you get a hold of those folks down there as well. And support them, because they support us, and that keeps this show on the air for you. That's what it's about, folks. You get a chance to have this show every day, and it doesn't cost you a red penny. All you do have to do is help support our advertisers, because that's what keeps the show on the air. Our telephone line is open. It's sponsored by Jason over at Wits End Barbershop, the hair hotline. I'll get that straight one of these days. You can call us at 257-1111 and 866-554-6636. We have a few minutes left before our bottom of the hour break, and when we come back from that break, we're going to have Dr. Bart Rossi here. Dr. Bart Rossi is a clinical psychologist. He's a nationally renowned political psychologist and clinical psychologist, and we're going to be discussing with him the horrific issues in Connecticut. So I'm also going to kind of throw the idea of gun control out to him, and let's see how that works. He's from New Jersey, guys, so he may be a little liberal, but we're going to hear what he has to say. Welcome to the show, caller. Go ahead.
I enjoy your show and what you're saying there, and thank you for getting on O'Reilly the way you did, because he needed it.
Man, he's just out of touch.
Oh, yeah. He's too much of a compromiser again.
Yeah.
But at any rate, you know, I sympathize.
He's an East Coast liberal, man. That's the simple truth.
Yeah. I sympathize what happened in that school. I mean, I'm a parent. You're a parent. We're all a parent.
Right.
And we don't like those things to happen. But when we disarm the civilian people, we are going to see these problems escalate into more so than what it's ever been.
You're absolutely right.
And the thing is our news media doesn't tell the people what happened in Australia when they disarmed the people there a few years ago.
Right.
And Australians ask us, don't let that happen in your country.
No, I've got a site up on, or a thing up on the website where you can see Australians and English protesting in the street saying, we want our gun rights back.
Yeah, right.
Back, folks, not we want our gun rights held. We want our gun rights back. B-A-C-K, okay?
And then we get the idiots like Dianne Feinstein talking about an AR-15. Well, she doesn't even know that from a cap pistol anyway.
Exactly.
But the thing is, we have never had, since I believe it's 1933 or 35, a automatic weapon.
No.
Ours are all semi-automatic, and you can't get these idiots to know that.
1924, they passed Miller, which barred automatic weapons and created the National Firearms, the NFA, National Firearms Act. Hey, I've got to... Go ahead.
Okay, well, you know, it's just like that AR-15 is no different from me having a 270.
Exactly.
You know? So they will classify that in time as an assault weapon.
Yep.
If you let the government get an inch, they're going to take a whole dog on foot.
The camel's nose is under the tent, folks.
That's
okay,
right.
Have a great day.
Okay,
Thanks so much for the call. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show. Caller, you're live.
Yeah, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Glenn Young.
Hey, Glenn Young. How you doing?
I'm doing fairly well. You know, I'm listening to this talk about arming teachers in the school, but I guess people don't have a very long memory because the Israelis had a problem with shooters leaking into their schools back in the late 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And their solution was to arm the teachers.
Yes.
And, of course, shortly thereafter, you didn't hear very much about people leaking into the schools, shooters leaking in. It went away.
Sure. And that's the suggested proposal that I threw out there the other day. In fact, I brought it up to the school board. They said that there are legislative issues surrounding it, and I said, fine, then let's change them. And he said, well, you know, that's a grassroots effort. And I said, right, but you've got to lead it. It's your job to lead that. You have to say, we want this, and the citizens will get behind you. But you've got to take the lead. That's why you're the leader of the school boards. So, you know, what it has to come down to is the school systems have to stand up and say, this is a solution we believe will work. And then the citizenry will get behind them and say, great, what do we need to do to help you get that accomplished?
Yes,
so,
I agree with that. But you realize we're fighting the teachers' union as much as we're fighting the...
Well, I hear you, but you know, if ever there was a reason or a time for teachers' unions to get on board with America and start to actually work for the best interest of the students instead of themselves, this is it.
I just wanted to point out that this had been tried before and it worked.
Sure. Oh, absolutely, it's worked. And you know what? The other states have the legislation in place already, and they're already implementing this or something similar. But you know, and that earlier caller had a great idea when he said, you know, maybe what we do is have military guys who are coming off overseas, and I think the problem there is a monetary issue, but I think, you know, and collectively we came up with this idea that maybe the right solution is to take one of those guys and let them lead a team of teachers. So I mean, because they've got experience, they understand what the real world solutions and situations are, and they can train them and teach them and also practice and so forth after they've gone through post-training, which is really, you know, more academic. But these guys would then be able to actually help them accomplish a real world training scenario on a day in and day out basis. And I think that, ladies and gentlemen, is a perfect solution. So, and you know what? This whole argument that you can't have a gun in school, well, what happens? I mean, so what are you trying to say? That after the shooting starts, it's okay for the cops to come in with guns then? I mean, how stupid is that?
It is stupid.
I mean, you know, you either can or you can't. And if you can't, then you're going to have to say, well, we're not allowed to enter the school grounds, so we just got to let the shooter stay in there until he runs out of ammo. I mean, who could think of a more asinine, idiotic response than that?
No, I'm afraid we're being more PC than we are.
Absolutely.
People are still worrying about the politically correct thing rather than the method that solves the problem.
Well, and by the way, folks, Claire McCaskill the other day went out and said, the hell with the NRA, and I caution you that that's going to be a major problem here for us as we go forward. So you can bet Claire McCaskill ain't on our side, and that's the simple truth. All right, she is definitely no friend of ours when it comes to issues surrounding our country. Hey, we'll be back in just a minute. Once you folks have a chance to, Dr. Bart Rossi will be joining with us this morning after this commercial break. I would encourage you to stay here and listen with us. Dr. Bart Rossi is a psychologist out of the Eastern Seaboard. He's from my home state, New Jersey. And we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the clinical and the psychological issues behind these shooters. Thanks very much for the call, Glenn. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. And we'll be back in just a few minutes, folks.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster. 4 more funerals today from the Newtown, Connecticut school shooting. 3 kids and a teacher who died trying to protect them. Victoria Soto, a mourner at another funeral yesterday.
Ever since this happened, I see my kids at the bus stop. I always hold hands, and I can't let them go.
President Obama is asking Vice President Biden to lead the response, looking at gun laws, school safety, and mental health resources. They're scheduled to speak at the White House at 11:45 Eastern. General Motors spending $5.5 billion to buy back stock from the federal government, with a plan to buy back the rest over the next 15 months. An American, a Canadian, and a Russian starting 6 months in orbit.
3, 2, 1, and liftoff of Tom Marshburn, Roman Romanenko, and Chris Hadfield making their way towards the International Space Station.
They took off from Kazakhstan in a Russian rocket. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Can you tell if the leftovers from this dinner party are beginning to grow bacteria that could lead to severe diarrhea, vomiting, and stomach cramps? Listen. You can't see it either. Get leftovers into the refrigerator as soon as possible. Spoiled leftovers can make you very sick, or worse. Roughly 3,000 Americans will die from food poisoning this year, but you can keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov. Brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
I'm a 3rd grade teacher.
I'm a school bus driver.
I am a parent.
I am a teacher's aide. And I agree to be identified as a caring adult who pledges to help bullied students.
I will listen carefully to all students who seek my help
and act on their behalf
to put an immediate stop to bullying.
I will work with other caring adults to create a safe learning environment for all the students in my school.
In my school.
In my school.
In my school.
I'm Dennis Van Rokel, President of the National Education Association. Help us create safe, bully-free learning environments for all students. One caring adult can make all the difference. Be that adult and take the pledge at NEA.org/bullyfree. Adults have the power to stop bullying in our schools.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
Bully-free. It starts with me.
Visit NEA.org/bullyfree. A message from the National Education Association.
It's the big finish of 2012 event going on now at Earls Dodge Chrysler Jeep in West Plains. Check out the 2012 Chrysler Town & Country van with seating for up to 7, DVD entertainment system, and an estimated 25 miles per gallon. Or try the capable and dependable 2012 Jeep Wrangler Sport and Jeep Grand Cherokee and Dodge Durango. Be sure to check out our inventory at earlsdodgejeep.com or just come see us at North Highway 63 in West Plains, where buying a vehicle is as simple as it should be.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, it'll be increasingly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. Our high 59. We'll have showers and thunderstorms overnight. Our low 37 as winds gust at 35 miles an hour. There's a chance of rain and snow Thursday morning. Mostly cloudy skies will gradually become sunny with a high 42. We'll have wind gusts of 40 miles an hour. Friday should be a sunny day. Expect a high of 48. I'm Rod Tanner, and for more information, check out our website, the all-new www.my1071thepoint.com.
America's Voice Now with Michael Evans.
We are back from the capitalist break. We've got to pay those bills, folks, and we're back with Dr. Bart Rossi. Dr. Rossi is a psychologist out of the New Jersey area, my home stomping ground. He's got a website at rossipsychologicalgroup.com. Encourage you to get out there and visit with him. Good morning, Dr. Rossi. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Wish I could be with you on better circumstances.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and you know you've got an area of specialty in this, so I thought our listeners would benefit from the idea of a little bit of a less emotional, more clinical approach to maybe discussing the issue. And so thank you very much for joining with us. I appreciate it. You've got quite a background in working in this arena as well as the political arena. And as we are now hearing on a day in and day out basis, the political arena and the clinical psychological arena and all of these arenas are kind of merging into one as they're starting to look at, these gun restrictions that they're talking about and placing and things like that. Can we just get your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the first thing really is to take a look at the shooter or a profile of these shooters, plural, including like Gabby Gifford's situation, the movie theater shooting.
Yeah.
And the profile goes something like this. These people are typically long-standing personality disorders, as we call it in psychology. They have what we call retained anger, a lot of anger that builds over time, that generates into a rage. And this rage oftentimes moves forward to what we call an explosive personality,
right?
Where people are tending towards acting out impulsively. Now, it could be a fight, it could be something else. It doesn't, usually end up to be something like this. But nonetheless, the profile of these shooters goes something like that. And believe it or not, these particular shooters feel that they're the victims. They feel that they've been victimized by society or the world, or in this case, perhaps mother, father, whatever, we don't know yet.
Right.
But they feel victimized, and they have the need to strike out or strike back.
Yeah. I think America recognizes, and by the way, we've had a couple of these in the Midwest too. There was one in Jonesboro, Arkansas, which is relatively close to us, and as the crow flies, at any rate. And that kind of was a recent, in the recent last decade, that kind of alerted America to what's going on here. And these do happen here in more rural areas. We had we have our own concerns. One of the approaches that I had suggested to our school board was to take teachers and put them through the same law enforcement training that our sheriffs and our deputies and our police department go through, and allow them to do double duty, where you might have, as an example, a retired or a gentleman who's recently been released from the military that has combat experience to kind of lead a team of teachers, because we don't have the economic resources to be able to hire, multiple law enforcement people to stand in every building and every campus of every school we have. We're just too widespread for that. But having like a military guy who could run a team of teachers who are properly trained and vetted and so on and so forth, to act as a buffer when these types of situations happen. I think that's a leading, may well be a solution that simultaneously protects the rights of Americans to own firearms. I mean, you can't strip us of our weapons just because 0.0000001 of the population is nuts.
Well, yeah, I'm actually a political psychologist who believes in the Second Amendment, and the psychology for me...
That's rare.
The psychology for me to take away the rights of individuals is not a good thing. That doesn't work well for me.
Well, then what you've done is you'll disenfranchise everybody who owns them, and now you got a lot of really angry bees. You just smacked the hornet's nest. So
right. So what I'm thinking about is something like this, though, is that we need to preserve the rights of individuals under the Second Amendment. But where I think we need a little bit of a separation is when it comes to these assault weapons and magazines where there's 50 or 100 bullets. I feel that's beyond the pale of reason in many respects. Certainly, there's other solutions. For example, if someone really wants to buy assault weapons and these large magazines, maybe we should even allow that to happen. But they have to keep these weapons someplace like a gun club,
or someplace where
with all due respect, Doctor, that's exactly how it started in England, and that's exactly how it started in Australia, and they now have no gun rights. You can visit my website at americasvoicenow.org, and you can see protests in the street from the English and the Australians who are storming their capitals saying, we want our gun rights back. And I'm here to tell you that the approach out here is that the Second Amendment here is absolutely it is foundational to our nation and our republic and our freedom. And we're not worried about school shooters. We're worried about a government that is absolutely tyrannizing us with surveillance. And the DHS has just recently purchased 2.5 billion rounds. Now, the DHS is a homeland security organization with no jurisdiction outside the United States. Why do they need 2.5 billion rounds of ammunition? Who are they going to use that on? If not us.
No. But I guess I feel that there is a need to protect the Second Amendment, but there should be some kind of a balanced approach. And that approach also includes a prioritizing of mental health and mental health issues. And that's the other thing that I think is missing in this country, where there's a stigma attached to getting help for people who have or are exhibiting mental health problems. And I believe strongly that there's so many programs that could be enhanced or in place to help young kids who have emotional and psychological problems.
Well, you're absolutely right. There's a stigma about that. Parents don't want to admit something's wrong with my kid. The kid doesn't even know something's wrong because he doesn't know what he doesn't know. And so what ends up happening is the kid just goes on in this fantasy land he's living in until one day, whatever the trigger may be, the straw that breaks the camel's back, and then he goes off half-cocked. And sometimes it's not something as crucial as a school shooting. Maybe it's something far less impacting. But you're absolutely correct. And unfortunately, we've also stripped away all the funding for mental health while we're supporting everybody on welfare, but we're leaving people living in the streets. And, we have no mental health facilities left in our nation at all. And there's no government support for that whole issue.
Yeah, and the thing that really gets me as a psychologist is that these techniques really work. The stuff that psychologists talk about, cognitive behavioral therapy or treatment, where you take people through guided imagery or you change their expectation levels, it really works. There are a lot of people, millions of people out there who went through some treatment in their lives who are doing very well. They're moving forward.
Yeah, but the liberal ACLU and that whole ilk are the guys who have turned around and said, you can't force somebody to go through that. If he wants to live like an animal in the street in a cardboard box, he's got the right to do that. And unfortunately, that's endangered the rest of us in light of the fact that sometimes those people just go off half-cocked.
Well, yeah, not only the street people, but also, in my view, in a nation of 300 million individuals, we have so many people out there with personality disturbances and personality disorders, and we all can relate to this. We have an uncle, a cousin, an old friend that you don't really want to be around too much because you know that these people may do something rash at any moment.
Sure.
And we all get a sense of that, and then we know that living with us in this country, we have so many people with this type of a problem, and it's a real issue.
Well, there are other underlying causes, too. It's our diet. It's our societal mentality. It's the stripping away of faith and religion in our communities. There's a whole host of reasons why. These are symptoms. These issues with shooters are symptoms, but they're not the disease itself. The disease itself is in our society, and it's damaging us in ways, and the fabric of our nation, in ways that we have absolutely no idea of what the long-term unintentional consequences are going to be. But we're beginning to see them, and it's devastating.
Yes, you're making a good point. And what about bullying? I mean, we've got situations today in the electronic age where kids can get bullied, and then they feel withdrawn, isolated, they get hopeless, they get negative attitudes. We've got Facebook, we've got phones that you can take pictures, make fun of people so easily. There's so many ways to ostracize someone or make a young person feel that they don't belong. And then they become angry, and then they go down that spiral that I just described.
Sure, or they recede into themselves and end up committing suicide, which is just as tragic. I mean, you have to admit that, and kids can be cruel. We've all said that. I'm assuming you and I are fairly close in age. Kids are cruel. They are. But it's one thing when you can only be cruel on the playground with a mean word or two. It's another thing when you can be constantly cruel through social media and through, these Facebook programs and online and all these other methodologies where kids can do a lot of damage psychologically to other kids. And, I don't think they quite grasp the implications of that. But that is part of what makes these kids withdrawn, and I have to tell you, I'm not an advocate of the video game group. That whole generation, I think, is being desensitized to violence by movies, by video games, by generally the whole approach to violence. It's glorified, not demonized.
Yeah, I believe that is a factor, actually. There's a lot of research that would say that people who are tending to be more violent actually move towards those types of videos anyway.
Right.
However, I really take your point, because I think that we do have too much violence and over the top video games, which is just, it's ridiculous,
Well, it's also in our movies as well. So, because and let's be honest, Hollywood is the first one to come out there and scream gun control, but they've all got enough income to be able to handle armed security. The rest of us out here, they've got a let 'em eat cake attitude. And quite frankly, I think a lot of America resents that. So, we've got a break coming up. Can you stick with us until the top of the hour?
I can do that.
Outstanding. We've got a break coming up. Folks, this is Dr. Bart Rossi, a psychologist out of the Eastern Seaboard, and we're talking today in reference to issues surrounding the basic society breakdown that we've got and issues surrounding gun control, the Connecticut school shooting, and others. We're going to take a quick break to pay the bills. When we come back, we'll continue with Dr. Rossi. We'll be back in just a moment.
The holidays are here. Come to Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance to find the special gifts that will really be appreciated. We have a variety of stocking stuffers ranging from Kaito radios and life straws to wave shields for your cell phone. We also have Berkey and Katadyn water filters for the health-conscious person. Also, Wise Foods and Lodge cookware to make delicious meals for the whole family. Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance, located a half-mile east of Walmart on Highway 62 in Mountain Home. 870-492-4030.
Okay, I got it.
It's easy to take your world for granted. Most days go by without a whole lot of surprises. But what if a disaster strikes without warning? What if life as you know it has completely turned on its head? What if everything familiar becomes anything but? Would you be prepared? Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Today. Learn how at www.ready.gov. Ready.gov. This message brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Ad Council.
America's Voice Now with Michael Evans.
Okay, we are back from our break. I want to thank Dr. Bart Rossi for joining with us this morning and sharing insight that, quite frankly, as an emotional in an emotional topic, we don't often hear the clinical aspects of these things. And so, thank you, Doctor, for being with us.
I enjoyed being with you.
While we were on the break, I had a couple of callers that asked for basically the same thing. They both had the same question, which I found kind of interesting in and of itself as a little micro study. They both wanted to know about your thoughts on the fact that we're pumping our children full of these psychotropic and mood-altering drugs that really are affecting behavior, and the fact that, half of America is on some kind of an antidepressant, and we're really just, we're beating our psyches to death with this crap.
Well, I don't know who your callers are, but I really like the fact that they called in on this topic. This is a hot one for me, because I think we are so over-medicated. If you look at TV today, all you have to do is take a pill, to solve any kind of emotional or personal problem.
Exactly.
I mean, it's almost like, if you have a problem with your wife, you're getting depressed or agitated, take an antidepressant.
Right.
Your kid's not doing too well in school, so give him a psychotropic, It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. I'm glad the callers came forward with this, because in my view as a psychologist, there are so many approaches that can be taken to help kids. I mean, you can work with them one-on-one. You can do different types of counseling today to help people who are withdrawn become more positive, move forward with their lives. I mean, we have almost every golfer in the country has a personal psychologist to help them get better. They're not taking pills to get better,
Amazing.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous that we have so much medication to solve a problem. So that's my view on that.
Well, and I think that part of the problem is that we've become the United States of apathy, right? We instead of actually working to resolve the problem by saying, okay, my kid's got a behavioral problem, but maybe that stems from this, or maybe he just every kid when we were growing up, every kid. There were certain kids who were painfully shy, and there were certain kids who acted out, and there were certain kids who, but we didn't over-medicate them and just try to, either turn them into, these docile animals with horse pills, or nor did we sit there and give them something to make them an extrovert. Unfortunately, part of that is just youth and growing up. You got to get comfortable in your own skin, if you will, and we've forgotten that. We
have, and I think society is really looking for easy answers. Too many easy answers, like take a pill to solve a problem. If you're going through a divorce, take the antidepressant. That'll maybe get you back with your wife or something. It just doesn't work that way, And I think the callers are probably smart enough to know that it doesn't work that way, and we are over-medicating people.
Well, it's funny because they tell you to take an antidepressant to make your marriage better, but then you need Viagra to make sure that the marriage can actually be consummated to keep things going. I mean, it's like, really? And, it's just completely out of control. Our entire society, and I say this to our listeners all the time, so they've heard me say it a million times, we live in the United States of apathy. And while we are living here like this, we're seeing a police state growing up around us with surveillance and monitoring by our government. And if you're not familiar with that, I'll send you a million articles that'll educate you about what's really going on and what we out here in the central United States are really concerned about. But simultaneously, while we've got that happening, the fabric of our society is being shredded and torn apart, and people don't know where to turn. And I'm here to tell you that if you think you've got some bad actors now with a bunch of kids that are watching video games and training for all intents and purposes to be a bunch of little armed monsters, let me tell you what's going to happen if they try to take away the firearms in the United States of America. You're going to smack the hornet's nest. Let's just play a scenario out. Let's assume you've got 500 million guns, which is a pretty conservative estimate, and you can get 90% of them, which I highly doubt. That's going to leave 50 million guns in the hands of Americans. And let's assume, for argument's sake, that only 10% of the adult population is ready to do something about it. That's 10 million Americans with 50 million weapons. Let me tell you something. That's an army even our army can't fight against. And so,
yeah, I think you're making a good point. Yeah.
We can't beat the Taliban over there, and those guys are living in the 3rd century, for crying out loud. So how are they going to try and, why would you want to consistently disarm our American populace when we know the Second Amendment is there as the Second Amendment for a reason? It's in place number 2, right behind freedom of speech and freedom of religion, to back up those first and foremost rights. And then that, look, it says shall not be infringed. We feel very, very strongly about that out here. And I have to tell you, it's the resentment of people on both coasts who are so, liberal-minded about this is really got our general area very, very upset. And I have to tell you, when they see stuff like O'Reilly out there last night talking about, well, everybody ought to register every AR-15 with the FBI. Let me tell you something, O'Reilly. You can afford armed security, but the rest of us can't. And we don't like it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're making a good point. Again, I'm a person who believes in the Second Amendment. I don't think we should change that. And as a psychologist, I don't think the psychology, and this goes to your point, really, it doesn't work well by taking people's rights away. It just doesn't work for me. But with that said, I have a neighbor not too far from my townhouse here. He makes me very uncomfortable. I think he's odd. If I knew that he had an assault weapon, I'd be even more nervous.
Sure.
So that's my point on that.
And I get it, but there is something to the fact that there is something to be said. When you look at, and by the way, we've got a caller on the line, so I'll bring her on. There is something to be said for the fact that when you look at crime in our nation, if you look at the historical countries that have given up their firearms, their violent crime rates, their home invasion, their gun crimes went up skyrocketing through the roof, because now those people who aren't going to follow the law anyway know exactly the scenario. Nobody's armed and nobody to defend against. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning. I know I'm about out of time, and it would be great if this doctor, psychologist would come on a Saturday. So more
well, I'll talk to him about that.
Okay, that would be wonderful if he would do that. Anyway, our guns that we have, and I know you're saying that there would be millions left and we'd be an army in itself, can't hold up to what the government is making now for weaponry that can stand against the people. And they have lasers, they have things that can blow your eardrums out for 500 feet away. There's things now that they have created that we cannot stand against.
I get it.
My guns, I won't give them up. I don't care what law they pass. I won't give them up.
Right. Well, I think, and your point is that what we're going to end up with, Doctor, and I think her point is well made, is you're going to end up with a nation of felons who are going to say, I don't care what you say, I'm not turning them in. And that's not productive either. What are we going to do, build an armed jail?
I need to defend against that crazy neighbor or whomever.
Sure.
So
okay.
Maybe I can't hold it against the government, but I can hold it against the neighbor.
Hey, gotcha. I'll let Dr. Rossi answer that. Thank you for the call.
Okay.
Go ahead, Doctor.
I'm not sure I can really answer it that well because she's making a good point in my view. She is making a very good point. I just have to say, though, that when I look at this one shooter, this most recent one, I think of, as a psychologist, a little differently. I think of all the personality disturbances and the personality disorders out there. So in some ways I'm making her point, so she needs to be defensive. But on the other side of the coin here in New Jersey, for example, my neighbor that I just mentioned, him with an assault weapon, I don't know. What should that mean then? That all of my neighbors we should all get assault weapons to be ready in case this guy explodes? I don't know. I think that's, again, I'm for the Second Amendment, but
sure.
I think that we have a lot of people in our society with personality disorders, and it's a real issue.
And again, I think you're absolutely correct that it is a complex question. But I have to tell you, I think before you strip the rights of everyone, that you would have that the solution would be better served to actually say, okay, here's a guy who the neighborhood is concerned about. Maybe what we should all do is, as a neighborhood, get together and confront him and say, listen, we just have a concern about your behavior here, and we're not going to try to make a big deal out or issue out of it, but we're offering you to, one, get some help, and two, maybe we can provide it, and three, we're scared of you. And then, make it clear that there's a behavioral problem there. I mean, part of this is the community. If the community fails to act, then you've got to allow government to step in and act. And quite frankly, every time government does, it comes in like a heavy-handed, it's like trying to pick up a pin with mittens on.
Yeah, and I think your point is a good one, because even in the school systems, I think that we really need to approach kids that look odd or are withdrawing. They look depressed or depressed with agitation. There's a sense of hopelessness to them. And a lot of times, teachers and administrators are afraid to say something, because of the laws, or maybe they'll get in trouble. But
sure.
We need a different approach to mental health so that these folks can move forward get some help and push the families, push the parents into some outpatient programs. We don't have to put these people in institutions,
No, of course not. And unfortunately, part of the problem, and I've got a caller on the line, but part of the problem here is that the parents are not responsible either. So, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Go ahead, caller. You got seconds left.
I'm innocent. I didn't shoot anybody. You don't have the right to take my gun.
Good point.
Come back on Saturday.
Okay. She really wants you to come back on Saturday, Doc.
Well, I guess she doesn't hate me. That's a good thing.
Well, I can give you a call. We can talk about that. So, listen, I want to thank you very, very much for joining with us this morning. We've hit the top of our hour, and I know that you've spent, you graciously gave us a little bit of time this morning. So, thank you very much. I will talk to you about Saturday, and thanks so much again for joining with us.
I enjoyed the spirited discussion. I really did.
Great. Outstanding. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful day. So, folks, this is going to be a wrap for our show. Make sure you get over to our friends down there and drop off your goods on the issue of our military transport that's going out to our military guys. This is the 10th annual troop drive down there at Battery Station. Please do us a favor and make sure that you get some goods down there if at all possible. And visit with our other... okay. Just late breaking news, but Robert Bork has it's just been announced that Robert Bork has died. Dennis Miller will be coming up next. Make sure that you pay attention to that show, and let's check on the news on Robert Bork. He is a very influential government figure. Absolutely want to learn more about that. Get down there to the Battery Station, drop off your goods and services, visit with those guys, get some product from them. They're a great supporter of ours. Bill Stone at Stone Construction, Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, and Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. Help those folks out, and also Jason over here at Wits End. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
.107.1 The Point, KBMV, Birch Tree, West Plains.
Fox News Radio, I'm Dave Anthony. It's goodbye for good for 3 more little kids in Newtown, Connecticut.
Every day we just say thank God it wasn't our classroom in our school on that day, but it could have certainly